McCartney fans, and welcome to another edition of Two Legs, a Paul McCartney podcast. We are a Paul McCartney talk show mainly dealing with Paul's solo career. I'm one of your two co-hosts, Tom Hunyadi, and I am with my buddy, my friend, my backwards traveler, the man that makes all of this stuff happen. He is Andy Nichols. Andy, what's going on?
Good evening, sir. How are you?
I'm doing well. Well, it's afternoon over here because we get to, still got the sunshine out and it's still over 100, so it's still a nice blistering hot day. But
Yeah.
I'll take it over that humidity every day of the week.
Absolutely.
Anyways, this week we're going to continue our Macca collaboration series, and we've got a gentleman here that's going to join us this week for McCartney and Costello, and he is, I would say, maybe one of the originators of the Beatles podcasting world. He started off with Fab Forum with Ken Michaels, Rob Leonard, and Mitch Axelrod. And since then, he's moved on to Fab Four Free For All with Rob Leonard and Mitch Axelrod as well. And he is Tony Traguardo. Tony, how you doing? And thanks for being here.
Doing great. Thanks for having me on, guys. It's a pleasure.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Cool. So like I said, we're going to talk about Elvis Costello. I've heard in past episodes of Fab Four Free For All that you're a fan of Elvis Costello, and every time that there's a fan of a particular artist, it just makes life a little easier because you're going to be a little bit interested in talking about the collaboration. So I'm glad you're here. Thank you for making the time.
Absolutely.
So let's just talk about a little news here. We're getting some new music from Paul again. Every time he releases these archive sets, he generally gives us a couple download-only material that's usually not on the box sets. They're just usually downloads only. So it looks like he's kind of, like you said earlier, and he's going back to the flowers in the dirt mode here, which can be a little annoying because it looks like we got some good stuff here. We've got The Beautiful Night, which is the 86 version, which was on the Ubu Jubu, correct?
Part 5, yep. And now that's available as a standalone download now.
Okay, and then now we also have Some Days with no orchestration. So that's just Paul singing with the guitar. And then we also now got Broomstick, which is just the instrumental. So my question to you guys is this a little annoying to you? I mean, we're paying a lot of money for this box set. Should all of the stuff that he's putting out for download only, should this be included on the box set as well, Tony? What do you think?
It's such mixed feelings with this stuff because on the one hand, I don't mind the downloads. As long as they're lossless. That's the only problem. No, I don't like MP3 downloads. Give me a FLAC download or a WAV download and I'm good. And I'm okay if they did the whole thing that way. But what's bothersome is when you have discs that don't run 80 minutes.
Right.
And then you go to this stuff that's download only.
Right.
You sort of have to scratch your head and be like, but there was room and it's relevant.
Right.
Yeah.
Speaking of this little guy right
here. There you go.
Or the bigger box set with the second and third disc. You're looking at only, I think, 34 on one and 39 on the other.
Yeah.
Come on.
Yeah.
You got that's another 40 minutes. You could just add them on there. It does get, as the years trick by here and all these archives come out, unless you're really on top of every minute of it, it's there might be a case where one might
forget something,
go right scoot by your radar, and it's nice to have it physically.
Yeah, I mean, even today, Thomas, you saying that these are out. Believe it or not, I'm hearing it for the first time. I've been up to so much stuff in the last week or so.
Right.
I missed the two. I must have missed the email, and
Yeah, and I only heard because a friend said, "Oh, Beautiful Night is up. 86 is up as a download on PaulMcCartney.com." I don't think there was emails. Did emails go out about all that stuff?
I didn't see them.
No.
Oh,
if
okay.
There was, I didn't see them. So if fans out there, if you did get them, let us know if you did receive an email about that. So I'd like to hear about that. So yeah, I feel the same way. It is a little annoying. We're paying a lot of money for these box sets because every time they're creeping up in price. They're creeping up in price. And the same thing with the suitcase. I own the suitcase. I love the suitcase, but we should have had everything on there.
Yes.
Everything. You know what I mean? all the way up to the last release of Home Tonight and In a Hurry. Should have been in that damn suitcase.
How much was the suitcase, Thomas? What was the list on that? Paul should have come to your house and actually hand delivered it for that.
Yes.
That's always
Yes.
my joke.
And the way it's looking,
this is what I feel like doing to Paul right now. This is right here.
Itchy either,
would
right?
never. You would never. You might think it and say you would never, ever do that.
No, I wouldn't do that. But anyways, it is a little bit annoying. We should have this.
Do we know? Do we know when so we have no idea on when we're gonna get the box still, right?
Well, my Amazon account, my Amazon order still says we're gonna get it on August 4th, not on the 31st. So it's
well, mine says between the August 4th and the 31st, in between.
See that? Mine says that for the vinyl set, not the box set.
No. Okay.
Order. So
have you guys heard it yet? Have you guys heard the box yet?
No, not at all.
Have you?
No.
Yeah. Yeah,
Oh,
we've
great.
heard pieces of it. So yeah, thanks to the nice folks. And it's, I mean, there's some really magnificent stuff on it. There's some really pretty stuff on it. There's some, it's hard because this is a case where you don't, and that's what surprised me the most about things like Broomstick not being on it, because this is one of the cases where a lot of what you've got on the multiple discs are the songs from the album, just repeated versions. It's great. It's fascinating. It's cool to hear it. But, Atlantic Ocean, Squid, all that stuff that was on the Ubu Jubus and on the CD singles, why not all that, And that we get as downloads, so it's a little funky. But it's a nice listen. It's a really nice.
Yeah, definitely would like to be a fly on the wall in that marketing meeting, to see, what direction they're going in. And, I know there's a big push for more downloads, more digital output, because, we know the physical format is slowly, dwindling.
It's not totally dead. It's, vinyl's got
it's not totally dead. However, it's not making any money.
CDs certainly aren't making money.
Right. But his markup on
vinyl
this.
sells. Yes.
Right.
His markup on this has got to be, how much is it costing to make that box? And that's what, $250.
Yeah.
So,
exactly.
and he doesn't even have to pay Elvis.
Right. I don't think the replica of Club Sandwich really cost that much. It's nice that it is to have it, but I'm sure it's pennies on the dollar for what it costs to make. But
cars aren't even being made with CD players anymore. So it's like,
True.
Our CD players are going to become, antiques. Well, they already are.
Yeah. Well, but as a McCartney fan, I'll continue buying. I'll be that sucker. And
that's us.
That's us.
I say throw a thumb drive in. I say just give us a thumb drive. Send me the box, but then send me all the other extra stuff. Don't make me download. Just send me a thumb drive.
Just send a little thing there with it.
Yeah, they're $2, $3. And you throw that in, and you just give me everything, and don't make me run to the website and chase my tail, and just
little flaming pie like USB stick.
Exactly. Yeah, exactly.
My dream would be a package in the mail or an envelope in the mail from MPL, and it's a disc with all of the download stuff from the Flaming of the Pie stuff, and an apology letter saying, "We're sorry we did this. Here's the CD."
Yeah.
Apology letter.
Yeah.
Good luck with that.
Yeah, exactly.
Somewhere Paul's scratching his nose at you right now.
Because he's like, you know what? That guy's going to buy it no matter what I say and what I do.
Yeah, exactly.
Exactly.
Yeah. He knows we're suckers.
Yep.
But I can't help to think, though, that their team is also looking at eBay and looking at the prices that people are buying these box sets and like record store day products, after they've already out of print, after they're already sold out. Those prices skyrocket, and I'm sure they're looking at that saying, hey, give me some of that money as well. So each time a set comes out, it's a little bit more. So it's definitely worth thinking about. It's
you can't even find McCartney or McCartney 2 archives editions for like $100 anymore.
Yeah.
Wow.
Totally.
You can't.
Yeah. Wow. It's like concert tickets, I guess. The demand is there. They're just, then that's a whole other story.
Don't get me started on that.
Yeah, me too. But I think that's part of it. Like you said, if you see that it's going for that much on eBay, Just like tickets with scalpers, if they know that it's going to go for that much money with the scalpers,
Exactly.
then why shouldn't the artist just make the money off the top? You know, which is to me it's a bad way to look at it.
We'll save that for another conversation. But let's talk about Fab Four Free For All for a couple minutes, because I saw you guys make the transition to YouTube. You guys are using Zoom. We can see you guys now. We can put voices to faces and everything now. How's that going for you guys?
You know, it was a lot of fun. I mean, you know, there was sort of no reason to not do it. You know, especially that you know, I love Rob, and it's nothing I would not talking out of school, but Rob's the least of our technologically inclined folks. But when he gave thumbs up and said, let's try to do it, you know, we decided to do it. And it's actually very different for me, because I edited all the shows.
Okay.
And I used to do all the audio editing. And the audio editing, I used to literally edit out every and ah. You know, I did it, you know, I did it professionally for years, did audio editing. So to me, every ah, every pause went out. Now that we're doing it in Zoom mode, we're and ahhing all over the place. And it's just, but you could see it. So it's a different, you know, a different vibe.
Listen, those people that complain about the ums and the ahs, I'd love to see them do this. It's just
bad.
You know, it is what it is. It's going to happen. Even the best people, we've had, you know, people that are scholars, or they're writers for a living, and they're umming and ahhing all the time.
Oh,
you know?
yeah, I've had to do with guests. You know, I mean, we used to have, like, you know, people like Edgar Winter, the people we've had on the show. Not picking on Edgar, but you know, and I'd be having to cut 100 ums and ahs, and you know, but people stop to think too. We're hitting them up with these questions of stuff that they haven't thought about in 20 years. They're not going to be able to just cleanly spout out an answer. They're going to hum and haw.
What can I ask you from 20 years ago then?
What's that? Right?
So what can I ask you from 20 years ago, huh?
God, we started the show 2009. That's 11 years ago already.
Oh, wow.
Now
that was Fab Forum.
Fab Forum. We started 11 years ago.
2009.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah,
So talk about that for a second. I mean, how did that, not necessarily how it started. I kind of got into the sense of how it started, but talk about it technically, on a technically standpoint. I mean, were you guys in the studio when you guys? We
did a lot of the Fab Forum shows in different spots. We were mostly at WHPC Studios over in, which is where Rob does his show Beatles Songs from.
Okay.
On Friday night. So we were mostly there. We were up at one of the stations that Ken was working at up in Connecticut. And most of that was done in the radio studio. Right. And then, for the most part, once we started doing, you know, Fab Four Free For All, we sort of took it.
Oh, did you mark that down, Andy?
Mark that yeah. See, 11 years ago, and I'm umming. But we ended up doing some of the stuff still at HPC at Rob's station. But we've you know, with us, you've heard us do shows in the car. You know, when we're coming back from the premieres. We've done, you know, stuff in diners, because, you know, it's when the topic is hot, just do it. And these days we have the home studio. We you know, for a long time we were using a Zoom and sitting at home and doing it portably. And it's just, you know, the technology has gotten so good that you can make it sound really clean and not have to be in the studio.
Cool. So you guys gonna stick with Zoom then?
I think so. I don't see us any reason to go, you know, to get away from it. I think we're going to stay with it. I mean, as long as people can tolerate looking at us, we're all right with it. But you know,
talk about for a second topics real quick. I mean, when you guys, you know, when it's time to do some new shows, does everybody pitch in with topics and you guys just brainstorm?
It's usually a little of each. We'll all throw in topics. Usually one or two of us will, it depends on what we're up to, one or two of us will balk if it's a research project. If it's something where we've really got to attack it and really get hardcore. The analysis and review shows that we do, we love doing.
Oh, those are fun. Those are, I think, your best shows.
Thank you. We really enjoy doing that. And that's studying, but, you know, we've known the albums, most of the albums we look at up, down, and sideways. And so that's research, but it's quick. When we're doing, like, the topics, you know, and when we're doing the opinion stuff, obviously that's easy too. You know, favorite Harrison vocals, favorite. That stuff's really easy and a lot of fun. So it really depends, you know, but it's often one or two of us will just go, I can't study this week. All right, so let's make it an easy one. You know, let's balk.
Right.
And then when it comes time where we all can really dive into something, we'll pick.
Right.
You know, we've got like a backlog of 4 or 5 of the
Right.
tough topics.
Gotcha.
We've been waiting to do the unfinished music series for ages, and we're going to get to that show at some point. But that's a hard show to do.
Right.
You know, it really is. We want to do all the unfinished music, and now that, you know, the bootleg came out with the missing unfinished music on it, you know, we want to cover it. But what a hard topic to talk about and try to do anything.
It's unfinished music, Life with the Lions, right?
Life with the Lions, and then unfinished music number 2 was what? I never remember. The wedding album's the one that stands alone. Two Virgins, yeah. So it's Two Virgins and Life with the Lions. And then the third one is
that's a tough show, man.
Yeah, exactly. You know, exactly. I mean, you got to do it because it's part of the canon.
It's part of the catalog. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
And I respect that when a show does that, because you're taking a chance. Because you know not everybody's into that, but you're still going to do it because it's important. And I agree with that philosophy as well. I mean, you have to take chances on certain shows, whether or not you think they're going to be, you know, get 10 views or 1,000 views.
One of my favorite titles we ever had was what was it? Analysis and Review, Ringo the Fourth. But please listen. Right. It was the title of the show. You know, I mean,
listen. You want to hear something funny? When we did another listen for Ringo the Fourth on Talk More Talk, it's one of our biggest shows. And
wow!
It's a shocker. Yeah.
Wow,
it's a shocker.
Fun. That's pretty cool.
We've done some shows in the past where I'm thinking, oh man, this is gonna skyrocket. This is gonna set us into the next.
No, you've all been covering Ringo like it's your job. You're finally giving John some justice and love tomorrow night. Thanks.
Well,
Come on.
But that's the thing. That's the problem, though, with John, because you know there's not that much
there. I know.
So you have to space it out.
So you'll sit there and you'll dissect the Old Wave for 2.5 hours.
Right.
Yeah.
If you have to do that, you do.
I'm down with Old Wave, man.
I am too. Right now, I'm busting Tom's chops. You know, it seems like every other week on Talk More Talk, we're diving into another Ringo album. Yay!
Hey, well.
Well, it's him and Paul. I mean, really. I mean, they've each got how much. He's very itchy. He's very itchy.
All the love, bud. All the love.
It is. I know. I feel the love, brother. I feel the love. Oh man. Anyways, but okay. So let's jump to the next thing here. This last 6 months or so, we found out about the Let It Be Get Back project coming out. Whenever we've had a guest, you know, such as your stature, we like to just pick their brains a little bit, what their hopes are, what their expectations of this project. What would you like to see on this set? Tony, take it away.
Wow, you know, it's interesting because this material is kind of near and dear to my heart. This is the stuff that, you know, I started collecting the bootlegs when I was about 8. So we're looking at you know, over 40 years ago that I was onto the boots, and I started with Sweet Apple Tracks. You know, I mean that was like the granddaddy of them all, you know.
Yep.
And there's so much on there that I'd love to see visually.
Right.
You know, I'd love to see Tennessee and, you know, a lot of the different things that were on there that made us laugh.
Right.
That obviously showed that it wasn't all dark.
Right.
You know, but at the same time, I don't want to see revisionist history. I don't want to see it become a whitewash.
Right.
That's obviously a fear. Do I want to see, you know, George walk out? I kind of do.
Why? Why not?
I kind of do because you know what? He comes back, and he comes back, and then he comes back and he brings in Billy Preston too.
Right.
You know, so there's sort of so much that Peter Jackson could use to make this become a narrative, to make this become a real story. Michael Lindsay Hogg, the more, you know, I went back and watched the original movie last week, and I can't help but feel that Michael Lindsay Hogg did go into it with a little bit of an agenda. He wanted it to sort of be a soap opera, you know, and by the time that it was done, you know, we already kind of knew the Beatles were history. You know, we're baked at that point. So you're editing the movie and you're editing the movie, and I think he just went back in and kept recutting and recutting to sort of show where the future was going to be, rather than look at just that time period as a snapshot. You know, you could have taken that month and been like, well, this is the narrative. This is what happened during that month. Instead of looking back at that month with, oh, and then the Beatles broke up, so I'm going to have to show this movie as a progression towards that end. You know, so my feeling is, you and I were talking before we started about like things like No Pakistanis and stuff like that, where you trace the origin of a song like Get Back, and I know we're in such a volatile time right now with political correctness and things like that, but Britain at the time was different. We know that the Beatles were the most open and the most, they were the people promoting love and togetherness and universality more than anybody else out there.
Not doing this show because of segregation, I mean, they're...
Yes. Yeah. I mean, these were guys that were, when you hear them talk and you read the full Maureen Cleave interviews and things that they were saying, this stuff really got to them. So to include something like No Pakistanis, but it's hard because someone has to know who Enoch Powell is.
Right.
Right. Well, you got the context has to be laid out, and people have to understand the history.
Right.
Of what the current state of Britain at that time was. Not now, then.
Yeah.
So that song is on there. That whole it all has to be laid out for you, because if it is on there before it even comes out, people are going to be writing about it.
Yes.
And kind of almost in a a mean way. Why is this on here? We demand you take this off. And it shouldn't.
And yet, you could almost hear the bitterness in McCartney's voice when he's doing it. You almost hear him kind of like snarling at what's happening and what he's seeing. So what do you do in the documentary? Do you flash a newspaper headline? Do you quickly, in a few frames, show what Enoch Powell was, what was going on, what was happening with the Pakistani population in Great Britain? Bang, 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 and then into it? Or do you have to let it go by the wayside? And not include it, and not have it be a part of any of the, whether it's the box set or the, or the movie. So, but there's such a story to tell there, and I just hope that the guy just digs into it. We know 42 minutes is the roof.
Right.
So,
true.
If the movie's 2 hours and 42 minutes, we've got 2 hours to tell the story.
I think if Peter Jackson's doing it, it'll be probably a good 3-hour production.
That's
4 with on the DVD or
yes, more.
Director's cut, exactly.
Director's cut.
Appendix.
Thank you. Yes.
But are we going to get them jamming on a quick one while he's away with Yoko? I mean, that's who knows? Who knows what we're going to get on there?
It is endless what you could do with the audio, because there's just so much that they did in that month, and then you get all the solo songs that started that month too, which would be nice to hear that as well on an official release, not necessarily a bootleg. I remember when I got I think it was called the Black Album, which was the bootleg, and I got it on cassette, and I remember that's the first time I heard No Pakistanis and White Power, and I was like, oh my God, what is this? And then I think I forgot the acoustic number that George was doing on that bootleg. I have to go back and look, but it was beautiful. I mean, some of his best singing, some of his best acoustic guitar playing. I think it was maybe Mama.
Mommy, but on my mind.
Yeah.
Or Hear Me, Lord. He was working both of those.
Yeah, he was working both. Yeah, so just beautiful stuff. So yeah, I mean, the possibilities are endless, and is it important to you that we get the original movie out with the box set?
Yes, I think so. It's going to be lovely to have the original movie remastered, because let's face it, it looks rough.
Right.
It'll be nice. I hope that they will go with a full true stereo soundtrack once we get into Apple. I mean, the most recent underground copy that's been circulating, I always joke that it's like Wizard of Oz. When they get to Apple, all of a sudden everything goes true stereo. And we've never had, a true stereo let it be. It's hard to do it in Twickenham because of the Nagra reels.
Right.
But to do it in Apple, you could give us true stereo. you know, obviously. So it'll be nice if we get the original movie, because again, otherwise it's really revisionist history if we take away the old movie.
Absolutely.
So I think we need that, and I think I think George will be the hero of the new movie. You know, I think everybody's gonna give it to George for, like, you know, I think they're gonna have to try to work it to not make Paul be the villain, but Paul was just pushing them, man. He was just trying to get something to happen.
Just wanted the band to stay together. That's all he wanted.
Just wanted the band to stay together. Yeah. And
it's not his fault that he had such a great work ethic. I don't blame him
Nope.
for that.
No,
I don't blame him for that.
Can't blame
either.
him for that.
Nope, not at all. And he was up against some rough stuff with John.
Oh, and Klein, you know.
And Klein.
Yeah.
Ugh.
But Klein's not in the picture at that point.
Well,
Not in January.
Not in January.
no, not in January.
But the business woes, there were ones.
Oh,
the
of course,
business woes
right.
that-
But, you know, Klein's later, and then that really is like,
yeah. The Dick James stuff had started to get ugly
yeah.
by the time you got to the Let It Be period. That was starting to get really rough.
Right.
And it's
Triumph and all that stuff. Right.
Yeah. Yeah, and it's John, you know, and it's John with the drug issue, dealing with that, especially for the early part of it.
Yeah.
You know, I mean, are we
You
going
watch
to
those-
see?
You see those scenes and Let It Be. I mean, he's just totally just zonked out of his mind.
Oh yeah, and then the outtakes. I mean, there's that interview that was circulating where he, you know, he
Oh yeah, during
gets up halfway through to go throw up and then come back,
comes
and then
back.
and the Peter Sellers clip. Oh my God, too. You know, I mean, Ringo keeps saying, "Oh, we had a lot of guests that came by and had fun with us." Yeah, we're gonna have that bit in there with Peter Sellers doing the, you know, don't leave the needles lying around. Oh my God.
Oh,
you know?
God.
So
Too funny.
yeah, who knows?
Well, we're not getting it now, and when we thought it was going to be a while now, so.
Yeah.
What they say, was going to go, now it's going to be September of 2021?
September of 2021, I believe.
I think so.
So
Yeah.
It just gives them more time to make another disc to put on the set, you know?
For Peter Jackson to add a subplot.
There you go. Hey, listen, if it's a 10-disc set, I mean, why not? Go for it. I mean, they're really, you know, Prince, the Prince Estate's releasing Sign of the Time. You know, that's a mega CD set too, you know. I mean, so
it's been done, you know. I mean, listen, people have released, you know, 18 to 20. Look at the Dylan archive stuff.
Yeah,
it's done.
There you go. Yeah, there you go. And this
the early years and later years of the Pink Floyd stuff, you know.
Yeah. We talked about the idea that, again, this is something that, you know, could you imagine? And I know they're not going to do it because, I mean, we know they're not going to do it. But can you imagine just they put out the box and then just say, okay, here's your passcode, download the rest of it. You want all the Macca reels? You want the whole thing? You want all 28 days? You're willing to sit and listen to it? Knock yourself out, you know. And
there are some people that would do that, though.
Yeah, that'd be me. Why not? Do the whole thing straight out. You know.
I've got the 88. I think it's the 88 disc, you know, bootleg set, and I think I'm only on CD3.
Well, there are only so many times you can hear George order lunch.
Oh, jeez. All right. Well, I think we should get moving here with the main topic because we could talk about this for another 2 hours. But so McCartney-Costello, what a partnership! Amazing stuff. You know, some of these songs. It's a damn shame that they didn't get released. Two of them, which we'll talk about later in the show. But Tony, did you hear about them working together as early as '87, or was it something you heard later?
I think I picked it up in the music magazines when it first started to happen. I can't remember, you know, back then I guess it was still like Cream and those mags were still around. Right. And I was always into reading a lot of the British mags too, the British music mags, even back then. And I think I remember the hints of it happening, that they were going to get together and do something. Right. But, you know, again, I couldn't have imagined how deep the project was until we started seeing the stuff slowly trickling out, and then once we got the boots and we knew how far it had gone, wow.
Right, right. So the first thing we got was Once Upon a Long Ago, later on in '87. But before we get to that, the
Well,
partnership, how it came to be. Well, go ahead, Andy.
I was going to, well, just I think the partnership was really at the suggestion of Richard Ogden, right?
Right. Yes.
To pair up, and Paul at this point, Eric Stewart, 10cc, press to play. He just needed just a shot in the arm, and boy, did Elvis bring it to him, boy. Let me tell you.
Well, not only that. I mean, you've got Paul, who's working with Phil Ramone after press to play is
right.
what he's not
To Pepperland
happy with. Right, and I think, and then he's also working on maybe a possible Cold Cuts again with Chris Thomas. And then what do we get? We get instead of that, Ogden. I think he also suggested All the Best as well.
All the Best, right?
So which was pretty much just telling Paul, just slow down on a new material, take your time, get maybe work with Elvis here, and really just work on the material, and don't worry so much about putting an album out just yet. And it's funny how they talk about it in the Flowers in the Dirt booklet. They talk about how Paul said it was suggested by management, and then Elvis talks about how he thought it was a joke at first. So it's cool how they did end up coming together. To work on songs with Paul for this proposed album, and how eventually Elvis became a co-producer for a couple weeks. But we can get back into more of that later. But it's really is interesting how they get together, because what you're a fan of Elvis at this point. I mean, did you discover Elvis pretty much right at the beginning?
Right at the
Tony?
start, yeah, the first album.
What did you think of because I mean I think these albums, these first 4 albums, I mean,
they're magnificent.
Yeah,
they're absolutely magnificent. They still hold up. They're still, I think all 4 of those records are like works of art, basically. But I think it's really funny, because punk at the time, you sort of had the 2 camps. You had the Sex Pistols, and the rumor being that Glenn Matlock, the original bass player, got thrown out because he said he liked the Beatles. You had the Clash talking about phony Beatlemania, and whatnot. And some of them the punks were looking backwards to the mods, and then but you know what? You also had the people like Elvis Costello, who were not denying that the Beatles were a huge influence on them. And Chrissie Hynde, talking about how much, she was a huge Beatles fan. So on both sides of the Atlantic during that sort of punk new wave movement, and especially that new wave was such a blast of power pop in its own way too. A lot of that British new wave was power pop. The Records, all those bands. If they weren't sending a nod backwards to the Beatles, I don't know who was. So with Elvis, you go back to that first album, and you listen to it, and you're not going to get, well, that's Beatlesque. But then again, you listen to something like Welcome to the Working Week. You listen to a thing where you have like hand claps and stuff like that. Where did that come from? That's Beatles, no matter how you slice it.
Right.
And I know that they met. Apparently, they met during Kampuchea.
Right.
And Paul had to have been a fan, because it's melodic, it's hooky, it's smart. Costello's music was smart. Mm-hmm. John's music was always smart. Right. So there were elements to that, I think, that pulled Paul in toward him.
Well, yeah. To add on to what you said about him having to know about Elvis, because he have the Attractions bass player on the Rockestra stuff.
Yeah.
Yeah. So he was aware. He had to have been aware of it.
Oh, definitely. And they were such a great band. The original Attractions. I mean, now the Imposters are still a great band. With Who's Left from the Attractions.
Right.
Right. So yeah, he knew about them musically, and for him, and especially for him to bring another bass player on board, that's an honor.
Right.
Yeah.
How to figure.
So then after that, then they meet up again. They see each other because I believe Paul's working on Tug of War, and then I think Elvis is working on Imperial Bedroom is
probably Imperial Bedroom, yeah.
And then Pipes of Peace, and then Punch the Clock, I think, would be would
Be
be
the two
next.
parallels, yeah.
So they keep intertwining because I think what Emmerich was the connection for Imperial and Tug of War because
Jogging
he
back
was
and
the
forth.
yeah, exactly, and then fighting over the Space Invaders video game, I guess.
I love that.
Yeah.
Love that.
Right. So obviously their paths have crossed. Now, when we're talking about Costello, we're talking about this angry man type music, and Paul talks about how the spectacles, wearing that, and just a lot of things just reminded him of John. And looking back at it now after discovering, because I pretty much discovered Costello's work probably 5 or 6 years ago. I started going. I mean, I've known of him, since '89's Veronica song, So about 5-6 years ago, I started buying all the stuff, and those first 4 albums just make a total impression on me, and I can see the attraction, no pun intended, for Paul to want to work with Costello, because there is a little similarity there between him and Lennon, don't you think?
Of course.
Yeah, I would definitely say so. I mean, the acerbic side of Elvis, is gonna be very John-like.
Right.
Also, the not necessarily puns, but the wordplay.
Mm-hmm.
Elvis is always into wordplay. Everything from like just alliteration to just playing with words, giving double meanings, giving there was a great there was a line I pulled out from one of the albums, but which is Joan, something about throw another Joan on the blaze or something like that, or I mean, his way of thinking, his lines are just tremendous.
Right.
And that's got to be
and the Liverpool connection too.
Yes, there you go.
Right. Fellow Liverpool,
the roots and stuff. So.
Yeah. The cadence in the voices, the way their voices carry with each other. That's a Liverpudlian thing. That sing-song aspect of the book.
Absolutely.
Right. So let's just talk a few minutes then about where their careers were at that time, right around this 86, 87 area. You've got Elvis releasing 2 albums in '86, King of America, Blood and Chocolate. Both do okay in the UK, not as well in the US. Paul then releases Press to Play in August. We know obviously we know the outcome of that. We talked a few minutes about that, where then now he's working with Phil Ramone. He's trying to, David Foster for a couple songs, trying to find anything that works, because, obviously he's, Press to Play, Broad Street, just things aren't just going his way at the moment. So, in comes Costello with this shot in the arm, maybe to give him a little more credibility for this, and then we get Back on My Feet was the first thing that comes out. So you get the single, I would imagine, Tony, when it comes out, or because I think it just comes out in the UK. So how's the first time you hear the song Back on My Feet?
I was I can't remember. I think I was working record and CD retail at that point. So we had a direct importer. So I probably got it, week of release. And
criminal that it was not available in this country, but that's beside the point.
Really, I mean, I fell in love with Once Upon a Long Ago, and I'm one that sometimes I'll do the Paul, you're being sappy. What are you doing? Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
I mean it's a beautiful song.
Right.
You just can't take that away from him. And then it went to the B, and mind blowing. It was just sort of like, wait, is this what we're in for? Is this what this is, this is going to produce?
And upon clarification now, I think it cements that early collaboration period even more now, because when you listen to the original demo that we got as a download, you can hear how the song was in a demo form and what Elvis brought to it.
Yes.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. So Elvis comes in. This song is pretty much well written. Elvis comes in, brings some words, because Paul likes to use the term, he's pretty wordy, and he's got this big book of words, and titles, which is pretty funny, and then Elvis thinks, hey, well, maybe I'll bring a couple songs myself. So he brings Veronica, and I think he also brings Pads, Paws, and Claws.
Yep.
And then Paul helps out with the bridge on those, which, you know, if you're going to get somebody to help with the bridge, you know, McCartney is one of the best, you know. So right away you can see this collaboration, you know, there's going to, you know, I'm sure in his mind he's going, okay, this might work, you know.
And it was funny, too, because when you listen to the demo, there was, it was funny because you think of Elvis as being like the cynical one. But what was Paul's line about, I don't need love, I was born on the street?
Yeah.
Oh, you know, and Elvis, I don't need love, though the temptation is sweet. Like, that was Elvis kind of just going, whoa, Paul, where you going? Which, allegedly on a lot of the other tracks, it's the other way. You know, Paul would have to say, well, Elvis, can we cheer this up a bit? You know, or bring up the melodies a bit. So it's cool. They really were right there. You could see what a compliment they were with each other.
Right. So you got these first 3 songs then worked on, because then when you do a little bit more research on it, you see Paul likes to say that they collaborated on 9 songs together, whereas I've read that Elvis says that they've collaborated on 12 songs together. So really, you know, where is it? I just found out that I didn't realize that he also brought Pads, Paws, and Claws with Veronica. I thought it was just Veronica. So I was assuming that, you know, that was a song that they originally worked on together as well from scratch. But I guess
so. Other than those 9 that are on the box, so we're looking at what was on the cassette. So Mistress and Maid.
Mistress and Maid, and then Shallow Grave.
Shallow Grave.
Right, and what's
the record store day release? And then you also have I Don't Want to Confess.
Oh, right.
Yeah.
Right.
So, yeah. Which is another song that didn't get used well. So there was 3 songs that didn't get used.
Yeah.
Apparently.
Yeah.
So, but you know, digging in now. Okay, so now later on in '87, now they finally start doing these demos, which, you know, the Flowers in the Dirt box, they'll call it the original demos, I guess.
Right.
This was part of the box set right here, and it was disc 2, which had these 9 songs, and might be my favorite CD in all of the box sets.
Yep.
You know what I mean?
Yep. I think I might be with you.
Unbelievable. I was blown away because I'm not the biggest bootleg person. I don't go out seeking bootlegs. Definitely when I was in '89, when I was what was I? Yeah, there you go. I was 15 around that age in '89. So I wasn't going out seeking bootlegs at that age, and not until later on, probably like 5-6 years ago, I started getting some more bootlegs, and even then I didn't hear about it until I finally got this set. Now, Tony and Andy, I know you guys are big bootleg guys. I mean, you've heard this stuff then prior, right, Tony?
Oh, yeah.
For the box set?
Oh, yeah. Yeah, I said I picked up this Ridgetone Elvis Costello, McCartney-McManus collaboration probably 20 years ago. So I was familiar with the material and probably Tony longer.
Yeah, but we had not. We should probably let listeners know and stress neither you nor I, Andy, had heard the other disc, the band versions. That was just, where did that come from? That actually honked off a lot of the bootleggers because they were just sitting there going, where was this hiding? You know.
Right.
And obviously in Paul's studio, you know, hanging. But the acoustic demos got out somehow, you know, made their way out.
Now, that bootleg that you have, Andy, does it have the 9 songs that's on disc 2 and 3?
It's got Lovers Never Were, 25 Fingers, Tommy's Coming Home, Something Like Candy, You Want Her Too, Playboy to a Man, Don't Be Careless Love, My Brave Face.
So it doesn't have That Day Is Done then?
No.
Interesting.
Okay, so
that's right. Yeah.
That's the song that's missing.
So that made it onto the box. Right.
Right. Okay.
That's right. That was the one that we didn't have.
Right.
And that didn't show up, I don't think, on any of the other, because there were a bunch of boots after the Vigatone, but I don't think we ever got that day.
Oh, that was a revelation here in that demo, wasn't it?
Yeah. Okay. That was awesome.
Right. So now they start working together. They use the John and Paul system of writing, which I'm kind of glad that Elvis kind of like, got in there, kind of made him embrace his past a little bit, bringing out the Hofner bass, suggesting that the sarcastic side in the song, You Want Her Too, I mean, it's really exciting, the way they collaborated on these songs. Oh, what was your first thought when you first heard this group of songs, Tony, back in the day when you first heard
I just thought it worked for the most part. I really just thought it
because you heard them
worked.
after the finished product. You heard it after the finished product, though, right?
Wow.
After I would say Spike and or Flowers in the Dirt.
I have to think as to whether or not I heard all of them after the fact. I think you're right. I think we did hear all the demos after the fact. But you have to remember, All This Useless Beauty wasn't out yet. Off the Ground wasn't out yet. So the only ones that we had the demos of, Mighty Like a Rose wasn't out. So, the only thing that we could compare was like Don't Be Careless, Love, Lovers That Never Were. I think it was really only a handful that we had the released versions.
Wasn't there, I think in lieu of the box set coming out, and again, on the download, you've got the 1988, you've got the demo of The Lovers That Never Were, but then wasn't there another demo with like a Jeff Emmerich remix?
Yeah, the Emmerich mix. That's the hidden track, I think, or something like that.
That's the hidden track at the end of Playboy to a Man on the second disc.
On the second
disc, which I think is like a 8-minute song, and then it goes, there's like a 10-second delay, and then it goes right into that.
I don't know. I mean, he saved it for Off the Ground, which, Thomas, I know you love, but I mean, how does that not go on to Flowers in the Dirt? I mean, in my opinion, that's the apex of the collaboration. That song.
Well,
yes.
That song is the real gem, I think, or the real highlight, or one of the highlights for me.
One of.
But it's the vocal that makes it the highlight, in my opinion.
The vocal is phenomenal.
Yeah.
On both
of them, yeah. Yeah, and I just checked. The Vigatone came out in '98.
That's about when I got this.
Yeah, so the Vigatone came out in '98. So so we did have everything, I guess, by that point.
Yeah,
except That Day Is Done.
Yeah. But I mean, we had heard all the release versions by that point.
Right.
Oh, of course. Yeah, everything was out. Right. Yeah.
Yeah. So I think the only thing that was there, the only thing that was there to blow our minds was 25 Fingers and Tommy's Coming Home.
Tommy's Coming Home.
Yeah.
Which, okay, now let's just talk about these songs for a second. We mentioned The Lovers That Never Were. The vocals on that,
unbelievable.
It's a crime, and Andy, when we do get to that Off the Ground episode, I'm just going to destroy it.
Bring it, man! I told you, I got my copy sitting right here. I'm ready. I'm gonna duke it out.
Buddy. I know.
Wait, who's the pro and who's the?
Andy's the pro. I'm the con.
Okay. I was at the Up Close concert, so there's a special place in my heart for that.
Oh, I had friends that were at that show too.
Yeah.
It was my first McCartney concert, and I wish I had that same feeling.
Now, you know what? This is all BS because the box is going to come out in 5 years, the archive, and you're going to be like, "Oh my God, I was so wrong about this."
No.
Yeah.
Want to bet? Want to bet?
Want to bet?
No. Anyways, Time Is Coming Home. And 25 Fingers. Two of the songs that did not get used, which is just a damn shame between the two. Time Is Coming Home. First of all, the songs, the 9 songs, their vocal stylings on all these songs, the way they harmonize, beautiful.
Yeah.
I think that's one of the real highlights from this second disc. You can't go wrong with this. And the wordplay, because a lot of these songs are a little bit on the faster pace, and they're singing at a faster pace.
Yeah.
And that kind of amazes me as well, that they were able to keep that together. Maybe, maybe they tried it a couple times, or they went through it a couple times, but just going so quick, and it just really amazes me how well they were able to get through these songs.
Yeah, racing through Everly Brothers harmonies. That's
they're
not
almost like a real throwback to skiffle music, really, in a way.
Sure.
Some of it, has that
25 fingers for sure.
Sure. I've always kind of got that vibe to it. They're Tom was saying like they're singing very fast. It has that skiffle-ish feel to some of the music.
That's a really
those demos.
Yeah. Part of that comes from Elvis too, because you listen to those early albums, 2 minutes 50 seconds, 2 minutes 30 seconds, 2 minutes 15 seconds, on to the next song. It's a beautiful thing.
That first song I mentioned, "Welcome to the Working Week," with it's like a minute 50 or something like that. Bang, he's in, he's out.
Right.
That double album, was it Get Happy? It might be the most songs on a double album of all time. It's just bam, bam, bam. 230, 240, and on to the next song.
Yep.
Great thing. So I would say that was more Costello's doing than Paul's doing, because after you hear the finished product, you see how a lot of that was slowed down in a way.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
I think it's also that high energy when you've just finished a song too. It's that shot from a cannon feeling. Like I don't know if you guys, either you guys write songs, but you finish something and you get in this and the demo, and you've got to work really hard to pull back, because you're so imbued with energy that you shot from a cannon. And here are two guys that are kind of, it had to be in Paul's mind that he was getting infused with new energy. It had to be. He had to be feeling that he was caught up in this. And we know Elvis was, as he said, there were still moments when he had to look at him and go, wait a minute, this is him. What am I doing? So that had to be there too, that energy, and it's captured.
Right. The adrenaline, the excitement of these songs, going and being upstairs in Paul's office, writing these songs, rushing down to get them down. How can you not be excited about these songs? I would imagine, in the studio. So, So Like Candy. Again, these other songs, I don't know how you feel about, we'll get to how you feel about this song, but so some of these songs, I knew about Elvis Costello, but I didn't start collecting his stuff until probably I got the Flowers in the Dirt. So I didn't really get, even though I knew Veronica, I didn't buy the album Spike. I wasn't following his career. So when I go back and then I listen to, his finished product of So Like Candy, and just got blown away by it, but that's for later. But how are your feelings about So Like Candy?
It was when I got the Costello album, I just sat there saying, this was one of the great ones from the session. This was just this phenomenal track from the session. And I love the fact that it's kind of a little bit of a narrative, and then when it gets to the the point about the chocolate, and it's just the lyric is brilliant. And I heard Elvis's version, and it's one of my favorite Elvis tracks. Then I heard Paul's vocal, and it was just like, what did you do to me here? Like Paul reclaimed the track, and was sort of like, oh, I could have done it too. It could have been on my record also.
Right.
And I absolutely love Paul's take on it. Absolutely love it.
Well, that would be more than on the third disc, the '88 demos. Then.
Yeah, absolutely.
Which then. Yeah, the band demos, which he was more, his vocals were more predominant.
Well, it's right on the demo. It's the two of them. That's right. It's,
exactly.
It's in harmonies through the whole. Yeah, right through the whole thing.
Which I think, in a way, is a good thing they did it like that, because then when those songs got separated, they knew exactly how they were going to sing those songs. I would imagine. That's
true. That's really true. But the duo version is just magnificent too. This is one that. Across the board, every version of So Like Candy. Just brilliant, man. I just love this song. Tremendous.
And this is one of the exciting things about this too, is we talk about this here, and it looks like I froze up. I don't know if you guys can still hear me.
Still hear you.
I got you, but you froze.
Okay. But the evolution of these songs, just magnificent, But You Want Her Too. Andy, are you a fan of the duet?
Absolutely. I mean, so the stuff that made it onto the album, I think is the stuff I like the best. Tommy, I like 20 Fine Fingers. I like Tommy's. I like So Like Candy, but I really love the stuff that made it onto the album.
Okay.
That's to me. I just the other ones are those other songs are okay, but the ones that actually made it onto the albums, to me, are those. I mean, You Want Her Too. That demo was just fantastic. I could listen to the demo over the real recording on the album. I'm sure Tony would agree.
Yep, I'll give you that for sure.
So, but yeah, I think you might be right there, Andy. I mean, the 4 tracks that are on the demos that Paul ended up doing on Flowers, I do believe two of the four for me worked very well, as in My Brave Face and You Want Her Too. That Day Is Done, and what was the other one? Don't Be Careless, Love.
Right.
That are on the album. That Day Is Done is nice. Don't Be Careless, Love, I think might be my least favorite of the songs that they do together. But still, and I can see why, which we'll get into a little bit later too, why they ended up not, finishing these songs together, because obviously both of them had quite a different idea of how they should go musically, which is, we'll talk about on the third disc too, because you got a kind of a sense, once they got the band together and then they did rework these 9 songs on the 88 demos, how different they were.
I mean that's the real one true kind of real sad fact with the whole collaboration is that they wrote together, they demoed them out, and then he just took them and did them with another band. If they had been imagine if it was such a true McCartney, Elvis Costello album together. I mean, that's probably what Elvis wanted. Tony, you could speak to that better, I'm sure. But
yeah, I mean, I think Elvis was he was just hanging on for dear life. I mean, I think he would have loved probably to have done it with a couple of members of of his band. But by then, too, don't forget, he had worked with Keltner. Which would have been really interesting. Could you imagine Keltner?
Paul wouldn't have liked that.
Right. I mean, that would have been a strange dynamic, but you never know. Maybe if Elvis said, come on, he's been my mate now. We just did 2 records together.
Right.
Or Steve Naive on keys or stuff like that.
Right, because Paul really, I mean, Paul's been using session players for all of his records.
Exactly.
Really. So he hadn't really formed his own new band yet. So the opportunity was there for Elvis to say, I got a band, let's use mine.
Yeah. He had the Confederates at that point. Yeah.
It still would have been cool, though, to see Keltner on a McCartney song or 2.
Paul would have never allowed it. He said,
I understand that. You work with John, you work with George, you work with Ringo, and
you're out.
But I don't know, maybe it would have been a credit to Keltner in a sense that he's always, the reputation for him is he's such a gentleman.
Right.
And he's such like a nice cat. He may have just won, he may have won Paul over, been like, hey, man, I'm here, I'm with Elvis, come on. I think you're right.
Yeah, I know that it was, the band, listen, Flowers in the Dirt is a tremendous album. I think we can all agree upon that. But I know it's probably not what Elvis thought it was going to be initially going into it.
No, definitely not. I think Elvis, at that point, I think he was just shooting for, because if you think of the 2 albums he had just come off of,
right.
Especially, I mean, Blood and Chocolate, again, both of those records to me are masterpieces. And Elvis has some stuff that I don't love, but those 2 in a row. And, talk about Lennonism, and it's a totally different song, but, Blood and Chocolate had I Want You on it. Talk about something that's stripped down.
And I was reading, too, that he was having difficulties with the Attractions at the time, too.
Yeah.
So maybe that, gave him just, and then he announced his retirement not too long prior to this as well, didn't he?
Yeah, well, that was his, sort of nervous breakdown, really, at that point.
Right.
He sort of had a breakdown. And then you saw, because he just couldn't handle the inner tensions with the Attractions anymore. And then it was the Confederates, was the band that was on, stuff like Indoor Fireworks, King of America and Blood and Chocolate, with Keltner, and that was he had done. I think that was right before he did the run on Broadway, and he was really, he was really at the top of his game as a writer at that point. So Paul got him, and I love the comments that they make that each one helped the other one move forward a little bit. I can't help but agree with that. And I think Paul got Elvis when Elvis was sort of almost at the peak of his songwriting.
Yeah.
But I would imagine that Elvis going into this, knowing that he's going to be working on songs for a future McCartney record, must at least kind of knew that things were going to end up going his way.
Right. You mean Paul's way?
Yes, exactly, Paul's way.
Yeah.
Well, at the end of the day, there's Elvis Costello, and then there's Paul McCartney. That's what it is.
Yeah.
There's a Beatle and there's not a Beatle.
Going to my Donovan impression. First, there is a Beatle.
Let's go move along to the third disc of the bonus tracks. The same songs as the second disc. Okay, but now, as Andy said, this time it's a band. These songs are starting to get a little bit more fully realized. There's more instruments going on. Let's see here. Got to love the Lovers That Never Were. Almost the same vocal. I don't know if it is the same vocal, but it sounds like the same vocal. Is it still as powerful? But you're getting now what? You're getting some drums in there. You're getting some guitar, electric guitar in there as well.
And at this point, the nucleus of the Paul McCartney band has been formed, right? They're all there.
Got Hamish in there, I believe.
Chris Whitten and Robbie McIntosh, they're all there, right?
Yeah.
I think they're there at that time, and I think Nicky Hopkins is there for a song or two as well.
Yeah, he does play piano on That Day Is Done. I know that. I don't know if he's on anything else.
Well, he did the piano work for Same Love, which unfortunately isn't on here. But
you touched briefly on the Emmerich mix, Thomas, of Lovers That Never Were, and I couldn't help. I just made a note when I said when Paul gets to the word "all" at one point and he growls it.
Right.
It may as well be 1971 again.
Yeah.
Which is really interesting. And then I started listening to the song with a fresh ear, and I was like, this could have been on Ram.
It really could have been. That's how raw that vocal is.
Yeah, that's exactly. That kind of blew my mind. I was like, wow, from a vocal standpoint, he's growling this.
And one of the cool things to read, sorry, Tom, is
go ahead.
In reading all the press that has garnered with these albums and seeing Elvis Costello talk about it now is his love for that demo. He loves the Lovers That Never Were. He loves it.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah, he says it's his favorite.
He said so. Seeing him like that, him saying that is like, okay, we don't worry. We know that this was great stuff. This isn't just a fan thing. This is like the creator saying, "Hey, that was the best."
The creator/fan, which is the funny part too.
Right.
You know.
But the vocals throughout that whole song are magic. I particularly like the part where he goes, he's singing, you must tell me something, I love you. I mean, it's just so powerful when he says, or when he growls it or screams or whatever. It's just so powerful. And then when you get the finished product, and when you go back and listen to Flowers in the Dirt now, and then you hear that song, how he finished it on Off the Ground, it's a total dud for me.
So you still don't even like it on Off the Ground because it's
not after hearing these damn vocals, buddy.
I know, but the vocal is still equally strong. It's still strong on Off the Ground.
It is still strong. Yeah, it's for me. It's like a little bit of a production fall down.
It's
more of a production. It's not raw. Yeah. It's not a raw thing.
Yeah. It's a production fall down.
It's a production thing.
That's what's missing from that song, unfortunately.
Yeah. Well, listen. Now you got it.
Yeah. Right. Exactly. Now we have it. Right.
Now you have it. But even the finished version on Off the Ground as a young teenager, I said, oh, that's one of the best songs on the album.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. See, I love the album, so I'm a big fan.
You're a pro Off the Ground.
I'm an Off the Ground fan. Yeah. Like I said, part of it is just because of how much.
You look at the time. Okay.
Well, thanks, Tony. We'll see you.
You just wonder why did he not include? Why didn't he include all the Elvis collaborations on Flowers in the Dirt? Why did he choose to space them out? I wonder.
Well, we can get to that in a second because we'll talk about who took what songs and why this album, an album of just these songs weren't, just didn't happen for one reason or the other. But I would say my biggest disappointment on disc 3 would be Tommy's Coming Home,
Yep.
which is one of my favorites on disc 2. But then what they did with it on this band, and they gave it that, sound effect like it's a boat horn in the docks of Liverpool.
Yeah.
Really weird, man.
I think they lost it on it when
They really did. And then what's with like after the word April Fool's Day, there's like this like these weird little
right. And then
some...
there's this little Indian horn sounding like from the Inner Light that comes in and out throughout the song. And drum machine, which I don't think sounds very good throughout the song either. So
yeah, Tommy's Coming Home, the band version, that loses me, especially when you compare it to the demo.
Correct.
Especially, and I think the same for 25 Fingers too.
Yeah.
To be honest,
it's okay. I don't think they ruined it like they ruined Tommy's Coming Home, but it's still got that quick feel like it did in the original demos version.
Right.
But
right.
Another couple. I like the Elvis songs, Playboy to a Man, So Like Candy. I like hearing Paul dominate those vocals on there. It just gives you a fresh, take on those songs, which is pretty enjoyable.
I think so too. I mean, 2 great songs, and then to now have these, these variations on them.
Right.
And even, I think the version of You Want Her To, mm-hmm. on the band version as the closest, it's almost finished, really.
It's almost realized.
It's exactly. Good term. Yeah, it is. It's almost realized. Definitely.
Same with My Brave Face in a way too.
Yes.
You get a lot
absolutely.
You get a lot of that. I think what it's going to eventually end up being on the finished product as well. So disc 3 is a little disappointing to me, and it sounds like it might be a little disappointing to you guys as well.
Yeah, because the original intent of what those songs were, as 2 guys writing them together, fully fleshed into a new band, doesn't necessarily translate into what it was the original intention.
Right.
Definitely, and I think there was something I found. I'm just trying to see where it was, but Elvis said something basically to the effect of, well, when you now know that you're working towards the album, you're working towards a finished version, maybe you become a little bit more reserved than you were on the demos. And he said that's why Elvis prefers the demos across the board.
Right.
Because he's like, this is it. You capture these things. And even Paul makes it, when he says the line, these demos are red hot off the skillet.
Mm-hmm.
Right.
I mean, that's a great line. And they really are. They're just, but with Elvis, and Thomas, I just found the quote that I was looking for. You went back to, how do you talk to Paul and say, but Paul said, Elvis is a very good foil for me, he told Q magazine in 1989. He said that Costello was opinionated, narrow-minded, and full of himself. Right. But I like that in a guy, which is a great line. But yeah, but I think the problem with disc 3 is there's now Paul's putting his studio hat on.
I'm putting my, hey, I'm in a band, let's do this.
Exactly. That was a good point, Andy, and I was going to mention that too. And maybe that's why these songs didn't work out, or the collaboration didn't work out, because, here's Paul, he's got a band now. He just can't, out of the blue, just release a McCartney-Costello album. Or could he? You know what I mean?
I think those guys would have done whatever he said, so, they said, look.
The band would have, yeah, absolutely. He's got plenty of material before the songs end up on Flowers in the Dirt, right? He's still got plenty of material that he can pull out of his back pocket to put on Flowers in the Dirt. He doesn't need those 4 songs to go on Flowers in the Dirt. Does that make sense?
Yeah, it definitely does.
It could have been its own album. I mean, these songs are, being worked on in '88. We get Flowers in '89. we could have got something in '88.
We could have. I mean, especially when you add in the Elvises, you add in Veronica, you add in Pat's Paws and Claws.
Right, you start adding Elvis's own songs in there, and there's
right. I mean, even though those are still McCartney-McManus co-compositions, we know that they're much more Elvis.
Right.
But if you had added those in, and we really could have had a 13-track album. A 12.
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah. So it would have been a blast. But I think the problem was you really had two different visions, and that's the one thing researching for this that I caught where, sort of Elvis kept saying that he wasn't really sure where it was going to go, but he kept saying, well, I wanted to see these produced simply. Like I wanted to really almost see the demos come out, which we know Paul never would have done in a million years. But Elvis wanted to see that these come out raw. So maybe I think once Elvis knew, and then Paul kept saying, well, I never really envisioned it as being, an all Elvis album because I wanted to work with different producers and different,
Right,
and,
which we did on that, right?
Yeah. So I think Paul must have had a different way of thinking, maybe going in, or maybe once he saw that the two of them wanted to do very different things as the end product, maybe that's when he really cut it loose and just started thinking, you know what, this can't just be just us. I got to do other stuff on here.
Well, and that's why I think, okay, just take those demos in and just release that. Get some what's the word I'm looking for? Get some critics to get behind it. Give them some credibility back. You know what I mean?
Well, I think that's ultimately what he is. But I think when all is said and done, and with the 30+ years to look at it, Elvis was there to inject a boost of creativity, and he got it. We got it with Flowers in the Dirt. Whether it's the project we envisioned, which or Elvis envisioned, it's not. But listen, the end result was there. I mean, McCartney, did very well with that album. Critically, not, commercially not so great in this country, but critically he did very well with it because of Costello. And
not not for anything, but let's figure, even like you said, with hindsight, you got some really strong. Spike was a tremendous record.
Absolutely.
And it was brought up by, the fact that Veronica's on there. If you take Veronica off that, if you take Pat's Paws and Claws off that, if you start mix. So I think really we end up getting like almost the best of both worlds by doing.
Veronica's his biggest hit.
Veronica was his biggest hit, and you got a case where, Paul got the much needed boost. Elvis got that cachet of having worked with
a Beatle,
which is a rare thing to. I mean, it's one thing to work with them in the studio, but to co-compose,
right?
So Elvis got a bit of juice. Well, I mean, when he, you can always use it. I mean, he was doing,
but he was still at the top of his game, right? At
the top of his game, but so I think in a way, by them not doing it as an album and by letting those tracks trickle. I think we almost got the best of both worlds because we would get highlights. And My Brave Face, the final version, sometimes I think Paul overproduces. That the production on that track smokes.
Yeah, that's a case where like the demo's great, but you drop the needle down and you're like, holy shit.
But I think that's really Elvis pushing him to embrace his past, his Beatle past.
To your point, yes, embracing the Beatle past, like. It's okay to do it, and like that, and I think really this was the beginning of him embracing that past and going out on touring and the touring.
Yeah, the tour,
So really, Costello could be credited really with McCartney finally saying, "Okay, I'm going to take this wall down and I'm going to embrace my past." And at the very least, if that's all that came out of this collaboration, which up until COVID hit. Paul McCartney has been doing that for the last 30 years because of what Elvis Costello urged him to do.
You just get that picture of him getting the Hofner in his hand and everything. Oh! The world opening up. Wow.
I remember how light this is.
Right.
I can be a Beatle again.
Yeah.
The video footage of them just jamming in the studio together that's on the box set.
The DVD set. I mean, it's one of the better DVD sets in these archive series. some of the DVD sets in these archives is just, it's just, what are you thinking?
Just brilliant.
You know, just
Yeah.
just not cool.
Oh,
So
what?
on the other ones,
On
some
the
of the
other
other
ones?
ones.
Well,
Some of
because
the
they're
other ones,
they're
some of
not
the
doing anything. They're just throwing. They're not cleaning them up. They're not cleaning anything up.
No, just not enough
Embarrassing.
content, just not enough material.
Yep.
You on a DVD, you can get real high quality video for an hour and a half.
You gotta remember though, especially some of these older ones from the '70s, you didn't have a total. There wasn't a lot of video content to put on those things too. You got to remember, you know, there was you had a music video or two to promote your album, maybe a video.
But you do a new interview for these things. You know, he started off with with Ram. He did a new making of Ram. You know, McCartney, I think he did a new McCartney, and McCartney too. I think he did new interviews for those as well to go on the set. So,
in the book, to go in the book, right? With no videos.
No, excuse me, they were in the video as well. He did a little bit about the making of
McCartney too.
McCartney. Yeah, I believe McCartney too. I'll have to go back and check, but I'm pretty sure.
That too, yeah.
You know?
Yeah. But I think with this one, I mean, I don't know if you guys, but just a quick anecdote. Elvis didn't know that the video was going to be in the box.
No?
He had no idea. Really? And he said that, I'm trying to get the story right, but we had just gotten the box, and I walked over to him at the premiere. I said, dude! And he looked at me and he said, yeah. And he put the glasses down, and I said, that video, that DVD in the Flowers box completely blew our minds. It was worth the price of the box. And he goes, yeah. He goes, you know what? He said, I'd forgotten that stuff existed. He goes, completely. He goes, I got a phone call from Macca saying, you know, you're going to get this box and you play the disc, play the DVD. And I said, oh, all right. He goes, and Diana threw it in the DVD player, and I went, oh, Christ. He said he completely forgot the cameras were rolling. Completely.
Wow.
He's like, look, I'm in the studio with a Beatle. He goes, I'm not thinking, oh, look, there's the camera. He says, totally forgot all about it. So he was so enthused about the audio, but he didn't even know the video
that the cameras were rolling. So
yeah.
So to that point, Tony. So what now in the present day? That album, the box came out in 2017. What was Elvis's response to it? Looking back on it now that it's been reappraised and it's gotten all this attention, how do you know?
I think he was still because we caught him. We talked to him about it at the Pepper.
Yeah, that's right.
The Pepper.
Listening party.
The listening party for that. Okay.
So that was right around the time, and he was delighted that it was out. He just had a huge smile on his face when we brought up the box, and he was like, and he said something about like aces on the packaging too. Wow, man, beautiful, beautiful. And he just was you could see there was a real pride looking back on it as to what they did together, you know. Right. And he was loving that second disc. That's the one that he was.
That's the one that he was like, "Hey, it's finally out there now, right?"
Yes.
You know, I don't know if you know this, Tony, but excuse me, I've been a chef for the last 30 years.
Oh, cool.
For 5 years, I worked concerts. We did concerts here in Phoenix, Las Vegas, and then at the Hollywood Bowl. So not long after this set came out, working the Elvis Costello show at the Hollywood Bowl. And I'm literally standing inches from him, and then I just wanted to get the nerve of saying, God, those demos are brilliant, and I just couldn't do it.
Oh man, because it's just so funny, man. You know, here he is, the angry punk, and he's actually one of the most approachable, nicest guys in the industry, I think. Mm-hmm. I've just been in good fortune being like in the proximity with him a couple of times, and and really crazy stories of being at a party and leaving a party, and just as like the Confederates were walking up the stairs and I had to leave, and they said, "Oh, but Elvis is going to be here in a couple of minutes." I can't stay, but he's a really nice dude, and he's still a fan.
Mm-hmm. Right, and you can get that sense when you listen to him talk about it, or in videos or interviews. You can feel that fandom in his voice.
Oh, absolutely. I mean, he when they put on the Pepper, the Pepper premiere stuff, he was as blown away. He is not the, I'm an artist, impress me.
No
way, man.
I've never even met the guy, but you can just get that vibe. He's so not that person.
Totally not that person. He was completely blown away by what he was hearing, and you could see that this was like his youth come back around. I mean, you got to remember. I mean, I don't know if you guys know, but his dad, Ross McManus, was on the bill with the Beatles at the NME concert.
In 65?
In 64 or 65, I can't remember. But there's footage of his dad, at the same show. And his dad used to be in a big band where he would do the covers of the day. So Elvis's dad would come home, and he said, I had all of the original white label Parlophone singles, or with all the promo Parlophone singles. He said they'd leave the Parlophone office, go right to my dad, and my dad would have to learn them to play them in the band a couple of days later. So, and then he'd just throw the single to me. Here you go, kid. So Elvis had all white label. He said, I had a white label, the promo of Please Please Me, because I had it before it was in the shop.
I think he says he still has them.
I think he does too.
I'm sure he does.
Yeah, he probably doesn't talk about it because people know where he lives in Manhattan. So
yeah.
Wow. Amazing. So, do you think? Okay, let's go into now. Who took what songs? Are you satisfied with that, Tony? Would you like to have seen a little bit more of a mashup, or are you happy with the songs Elvis took?
I think the distribution made a lot of sense. Playboy to a Man, Elvis knocks it out of the park on Mighty Like a Rose.
You think so? Because from hearing this demo to all the way to his version of that is just so wacky.
The demo's so amazing, though. Thomas, it's like you're right. I mean, it's, as far as finished versions, I mean, I guess I always go by the thought that would Paul have tamed it? Like, we hear the demo, and it's so great to hear the Playboy to a Man demo. But would Paul have reined it in for a released version? I just don't know. But So Like Candy's the only one that bugs me. I would love to have seen that have been like That Day Is Done and have both versions.
Okay, fair enough.
I'd love to have heard So Like Candy, a Paul version released and an Elvis version released.
Yeah.
Right.
That's
looking back on it now, it makes sense that, Elvis gets Veronica. It makes sense that he gets Pat, Paws, and Claus. What doesn't make sense is you think he would take That Day Is Done, which is also written about his grandmother's funeral.
Right. Right. But he did release a version of that with the Fairfield 4. I'm trying to think of what album that's on. Let's see. Yeah, I'll find it. But Elvis did release a version of that.
Okay.
The Fairfield 4 featuring Elvis Costello. It's on the album I Could Hear Nobody Pray.
Okay.
And it's also on Very Best of Elvis Costello, too. The Green Greatest Hits album. So Elvis did put out a version of it.
Okay.
Very different from Paul's. Very
different
take. It's really the New Orleans funeral.
It's the New Orleans,
Yeah.
Dirge.
Which you get a sense of on the third disc, in a way.
Yeah. Exactly. Much more like that.
Right. So the one that I really have come to love is the So Like Candy, especially Elvis Costello's version.
Oh.
What was that on? Was that on
Mighty Like a Rose?
Mighty Like a Rose. And the video, I think, is just as powerful as well.
Yeah.
I'm a big fan of that guitar work, kind of thing, throughout the song. And his vocals are just so powerful for that song as well.
His vocals brilliant.
Yeah.
The one that I would love to have seen remain, I mean, I love Elvis's version of it, but I would love to have heard the two of them on Shallow Grave.
Oh, okay.
Is another one. Because Paul seems to dive into that vocal. and would love to have heard that done as a duo.
Right. I think the one that I've been probably most disappointed about that didn't get used would be 25 Fingers. I think that would work just like You Want Her To would work with them just constantly, singing the song, throughout.
Right.
Andy, I mean, is that one of one of the songs you like, Andy?
Yeah.
I thought you said 25 Fingers.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. That's the one that reminds me of the the skiffle and stuff. I like that shit.
Right.
I like.
Yeah,
good stuff. Really good stuff.
I think 25 Fingers. I think the problem is that I think it's still. I keep jumping back to the demo version as opposed to that later band version. I just always keep thinking if we'd skipped that step and there were released versions that were really close to the demo, then I could have seen a redistribution, or I could have seen them. Why not leave the other one's vocals on your version?
On yours, yeah. Why just include it?
Yeah, and so, You Want Her To is really the only one where Elvis is present, on the final take.
Right.
Exactly. And then the only other one that Paul would be on then is I think Veronica, where he plays bass on that track.
Yeah.
So those that aren't aware, okay, when we're talking about Elvis Costello, his album Spike has Veronica and Pads, Balls, and Claws.
Mm-hmm.
So then when you get to Mighty Like a Rose, then that has So Like Candy and Playboy to a Man.
Right.
And then when you get All This Useless Beauty, that's the one that has Shallow Grave. So all in all, Elvis got 5 of those songs.
And then You Want Her To a little bit later.
Right. So then, obviously then on Flowers of Dirt, we got My Brave Face. We got You Want Her To, Don't Be Careless, Love, and That Day Is Done on Flowers in the Dirt. And then Paul whips out 2 more for Off the Ground, which is The Lovers That Never Were and Mistress and Maid. So so you get those. So let's move on to like the aftermath here, because besides Paul doing My Brave Face, it's Elvis that really continues doing a lot of these songs. You see him do he performs Pat Paul's Claws, and he does So Like Candy on Letterman. He does That Day Is Done on the Concert for Linda, I think, or was it Don't Be Careless, or is it That Day Is Done, I think, for the concert for Linda. In gotta remember which one that
I'm
was.
trying to think. That's on one of the boots with a lot of that other stuff.
Yeah, I think it's on that bootleg you got, Andy.
I think so too. Yeah.
No.
Oh no, it's
No.
It's the other acoustic thing.
Don't Be Careless, Love, I think. Maybe. But anyways, then Paul and Elvis, they do Mistress and Maid at the Royal College of Music. Benefit concert.
95?
Which is 95, and they also do One After 909.
That's it. That was the one where they did One After 909.
Right, that's on this. Right.
Yeah, that's on that. Right.
Because I think Paul only did My Brave Face live of all the songs that they did together.
Yeah.
I think you're right. I think that's the only thing he ever did live.
Other than that little one-off of, where they did
Mistress and Maid.
Maid, yeah. I mean, Love As It Never Were was never played live.
No.
Neither was That Day Is Done. Oh, they sound checked it, I think, maybe a little bit, but they never actually played it live.
Okay, well, I mean, sound check is something, but to actually just to not do any of those songs on like a TV spot or even about
My Brave Face obviously was, but I mean,
because that was the big hit. But I would imagine that he's got to be proud of some of these songs to maybe whip out a one for live, especially during the Flowers in the Dirt tour. And as you can see, we're back, and we have some technical difficulties. First time, Two Legs has had some Zoom issues, and Andy, it sucks, but we're back, and we've got Tony. He's back, and obviously he's visiting Friar Park. Yeah, you want to raise? Yeah, no problem.
Nothing from nothing leaves nothing.
There you go, Tone.
And it's Tuesday night, and somehow Tony was able to jump an air, a trip to
Got my
Fire Park.
gnomes. Got my gnomes. It's all good.
Yeah, he went from the America to Fire Park, America Box Palace.
You got it.
Yeah, lucky guy. Anyways, but to finish off the show, we're talking about the collaboration, where it ranks in with Macca's or Macca. I gotta make sure I say Macca. His the collaborations, because not all of them have ended as well as this. Obviously, McCartney and Costello remain friends. They've performed together. Costello did the White House, where he did Penny Lane, and they performed together a couple times. So that friendship has been stable. It's continued to grow. Whereas when McCartney has worked with Denny Lane and Eric Stewart, you don't really see a lot of interaction between those two, and we all know what happened with the Michael Jackson collaboration, where somebody got rich off of somebody else's idea, but that's another story.
And lost it to Sony.
Love you, kid. We love you, kid. We love you. We love you, kid. Anyway.
Yeah, exactly. Because we had that conversation with Kit. But Tony? So where does this collaboration rank for you? Obviously, we talked about the songs. We were really excited about these songs. They continue to be a part of my listening.
Definitely.
Enjoyment. So where does collaboration rank for you in the collaborations of the career of McCartney?
For me, I mean, I think really, other than John, I really do think that the Elvis collaboration is probably the most important collaboration that McCartney's had. It's certainly been the most prolific.
Right.
Was the most productive. Costello had a great quote where he said, basically he said, well, consider where I am. I'm sandwiched between Michael Jackson and Kanye West and Rihanna. So that must account for something. Which is kind of like, I'm paraphrasing, but it's a great line. And also, to me, we got to remember the two of them, even though they weren't working in the same room, but they just showed up on the Saints Go Marching In video together too. Right. Don't forget.
Exactly.
As of this year, as of this recording date. So yeah, I would say it ranks very, very high. I think next to John and Paul, I think this is probably and look, in a certain way, you also have to obviously say that Paul and Linda was a really, really important collaboration.
Sure. Oh, absolutely.
But that to me kind of transcends to a different level.
Right.
That's a whole other level altogether. So other than John and Paul, as far as songwriters and foils for each other, I think this is the highest. This was the best.
Right. And it wasn't, say, as successful as maybe the McCartney-Jackson collaboration, where they did get number 2 with What the Girl Is Mine, and number 1 with Say Say Say.
But they also recorded The Man, so you have to take points away for that. I'm sorry.
Don't hate on The Man, Tony. I love me The Man.
Do you? All right.
This collaboration also, even though it wasn't successful, it brought McCartney back. I mean, it gave him some street cred again, especially on the writing side of his critically. Thank you. Yeah, and I keep going back and thinking, man, what a wasted opportunity to not release these demos as just here we'll do a couple interviews to promote it. But it's not like my future in my album, which I'm working on right now, because you got to figure from 86 to 89, he's just got so many songs that could go on Flowers in the Dirt. He really didn't need these 4 songs in my opinion. But yeah, it was a pretty successful and great collaboration. Andy, where do you rank it?
It's the number 1 collaboration. It's a loaded question, I think, because artistically it's the number 1 collaboration, because we're in the know. Ask Joe Blow down the street, they're gonna say, give me McCartney and Denny Lane, and give me Wings, and give me Band on the Run, and give me No Words, and give me
Wow, that's true.
Look and Tire. We know this. But if I ask my neighbor down the street, they're gonna know Olive Kintyre or something off Band on the Run before they know anything off Flowers in the Dirt. Now, artistically and critically, I think we're all on the same page. It's clear it's the number one collaboration after his collaboration with John. I agree with Tony. I agree with you. But I think for the average person, pun intended, they're not really going to know that this is, because we as McCartney people and fans and Elvis Costello fans, we get it, we know it. But I think, and obviously the archive release did bring a lot of that back to the mainstream media and press and attention, saying, this was a successful collaboration. Elvis Costello was at the peak of his career. McCartney needed a shot in the arm. So it's, for me, it's the number one, but trying to view it, in the whole concept, in the grand scheme of things, I think it will get it could get lost, not to us, but I think it's lost.
Because, obviously it wasn't a household, Costello.
It wasn't Michael Jackson.
Still is probably not a household name.
Right.
I don't know which how.
Wonder. Right. It wasn't.
Yeah.
Right.
I don't know what you would think about that, Tony, but being the Costello, and he gets his biggest hit with working with McCartney too. It's just, I agree with you guys. It's definitely at the top of the, Paul's collaborations, and it deserves to be looked at for sure.
Yeah, it's funny that you brought up Stevie Wonder though too, Andy. It was amazing that didn't go through my head. But one thing I was thinking about with Elvis, as opposed to Denny, Denny was a mate from back then, but I don't know if he really looked at Denny as like a peer, as
songwriter-wise.
Songwriting level.
Whereas Stevie Wonder, he must have. He must have looked at Stevie Wonder as an equal or damn close. And with Elvis too, he must have had a deep respect for the guy as a fellow songwriter.
It's interesting looking at McCartney's levels of how he looks at people. Like he respected Denny Lane, but he knew enough. He knew he wouldn't be threatened enough by him.
Right.
To have him challenge anything really. He was like a collaborator, but not enough of one where he was going to threaten his position on saying, "Hey, don't do this or don't do that."
Yeah.
Elvis could do. Stevie could do. These other Michael could do, right?
Yeah, that's a really good point, and that's why it's I don't know, it's fascinating because you have to wonder too, like when we talk about that these are now back out into the public. If he had done this, back when the album came out, they were doing so much in the way of like bonus discs only in Japan, discs only. Can you imagine the sales figures that he would have gotten if they had done a deluxe edition like the way they did for Off the Ground and done a disc of Flowers in the Dirt and then a disc of demos
back then?
Back then? Talk about like really putting the sales through the roof. You would have gotten again best of both worlds on there,
Absolutely.
So it's interesting. Now it's great that it's in the public eye, but how many more copies of the Flowers in the Dirt box did he really sell because of those press interviews? People might have thought, wow, this is cool, I'll go get, how much was that? Whereas at the time, if it had just been a bonus disc, it might have sold like crazy.
It could have, because you could have, and that would have promoted that collaboration even more.
Definitely.
It really would have, because I can tell you, and I was a kid at the time, I had no concept that Elvis Costello was even involved with the recording of that album. Because I was too young to even realize that McManus was Costello.
Right.
So I bought the record as a young kid who was a McCartney fan and liked the music. Not until later learning, Elvis Costello was a part of this. So if those recordings could have been promoted more at the time, as you're saying, that would have, that might have added to the.
Sure.
You bring up a good point too about the McManus part of it, because going back and looking at it, you see McManus, and like you too, Andy, I knew Costello had worked on it, but then when you see McManus, that kind of just goes right over your head in a way, or at least it did for me. And then it wasn't for years later that I realized that McManus was Costello.
Yeah. Yeah, he had started going. I guess he'd started going back to that with King of America,
Okay.
He started going
right?
back to using McManus a lot. But I'm laughing because you're making me feel so old. You're like, I got that when I was a kid. I was like, I was already 7 years into doing my Beatles radio show
Oh,
when you.
wow.
Sorry, Tom.
No, it's all right. I started my show in '88. No, I started my show in '84. So I was 5 years into doing the radio show.
Okay.
Awesome.
But I started the show in '84. Too funny.
But again, context and time and age.
Absolutely. Yeah, absolutely.
Listen, it all melts together.
Absolutely. You played catch up.
Yeah.
With the music, you played catch up.
Oh,
Awesome.
absolutely. Yeah, and we, talk last night. We were talking about how because I was born in '73. We were talking about Mind Games last night. I was all 7 months old when that album came out.
Wow.
So it wasn't until the 2002 reissue that I actually really listened to the album, because I had the Lennon box set from 1990, I think it was
the first.
Yeah, the 4 CD set. So it had songs from Mind Games, but it wasn't the whole album.
You didn't even own the CD until 2002.
Right. Yeah.
Yeah. That's cool though. It's pretty wild.
That's cool. Everybody.
Well, in a way,
yeah.
In a way. I mean, even though, because I was more Beatles. You know what I mean? It wasn't really until '99 when my uncle and I started doing the "What If the Beatles Never Broke Up" thing, like 70, 71, and 72. So we were doing that, and then that's when I really took the time to, listen to the records. You know what I mean?
Yeah. No, I'm gonna have to ask the question. Did you guys start, like Thomas? Did you start with the American or the British?
Oh, it was always British.
It was always and Andy.
American, because
American.
My father is a first generation Beatle fan.
Oh wow! So you literally inherited it from Dad. Oh, that's great. That's cool.
My dad was like 11 in '64. So.
Oh wow! Perfect.
So I went American and then British.
See, my sister was 11 in '64.
Okay.
So that's when my sister was 11.
Too?
I was American across the board.
Wow,
Yeah, I was American across the board. I got Meet the Beatles and Pepper when I was 5. So in '70.
Your brain actually is probably trained for sequencing like the songs, right? Okay.
Totally.
If I'm listening to the American, it's this one next. If I'm listening to the British, it's that one next, right?
Right.
And Drive My Car opening Rubber Soul still makes me go, what?
I know. It makes you I just seen a face.
Yeah.
Well,
Really
the only U.S. album I've ever known or owned was the Hey Jude album, and
Sure.
Yeah, and I'm happy about that.
Sure.
I really am, and I know, and I've heard, Fab Four Free for All, people like you and other shows, things we said today and all them talk about how they grew up with the American copies and they prefer those over the British copies, and I can understand it, but I also, in a way, can't understand why, because that's not how they wanted it. You know what I mean?
Just for fun, though, treat yourself to a mono Beatles second album. Yeah. Just for fun. Just throw on mono Beatles second album, and for 24 minutes, just fry your brain because it's just so brilliant.
24 minutes.
Right, 24 minutes.
We know it's not what they were.
Right.
It wasn't what they intended, but if that's what was available and that's what.
No, understand. That's totally understandable. Totally understandable.
But I think obviously Tony would agree. With time, I mean, people like us could have. We obviously know the British catalog is canon, and we can appreciate it just as much as we can.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
Fair enough.
Yeah. And shake our hands at Dave Dexter. Anyway.
Junior.
Dave Dexter Jr. Good point. Can't put poor Dad in there. Just
can't do it. Some of those crazy things like the extra reverb on Beatles 65. I like it. I do.
It's part of our lives. It's part of our experiences growing up. Kind of cool. So.
Cool. Well, awesome. Well, this has been great conversation. Tony, we want to thank you very much for joining us on this conversation.
Oh, absolutely, man. My pleasure.
It's been a pleasure because, knowing once I found out that you were an Elvis Costello fan, I was like, you'll be perfect for this,
Thank you.
And you proved me right, so thank you for that. But what do you got plugged? What do you guys got coming up? And
wow.
For Freefall and whatever other projects you got.
Well, we're always trying to come up with it's coming up with the topics that's always tough. We have been trying to conquer the unfinished music albums for a really long time. We're gonna get to. We're gonna get to go. Exactly. You know, how much can you do on that? But you know, but you like it's funny. It's a topic you have to hit. You know,
and you got to take that chance. You got to take that.
You do.
I admire you guys for doing that because.
Thank you.
You do. It really is to do the whole canon. Because listen, it may not be musically something great, but you're tackling it because it's part of the history, which is really cool.
Yeah, and we, you know, like I always joke that we did an episode titled because we do our analysis and review shows. We did like an analysis and review Ringo the Fourth, and then we put next to it like, but please listen anyway. Like was the title of the show, but it's like, you know, you've got to cover all of it. We do the analysis and reviews. We love doing the listener question shows, too. Those are a heck of a lot of fun, and it's always just trying to find like a new angle because, you know, we do the favorite vocals, least favorite vocals. It's always really fun trying to get poor Rob Leonard to like say anything is a least favorite of the, you know. But there's always something to be found. But doing stuff like that is a blast, you know. So.
No, that's been great. And those Talk More Talk guys, I mean, they're on Ringo's payroll, so, you know.
Hey, listen, our Ringo the Fourth show on YouTube, we've done over 1,300 views.
That's so cool. That is so cool. Wow.
I figure, you know, it's amazing that people will listen to people's thoughts, you know, and opinions. On
you guys actually got more hits than copies sold of the album.
There you go.
I think. I'm sorry. But we're, you know, we're doing that, and I'm still doing. You know, now that we're still in the middle of all this chaos with the pandemic and stuff, I'm still doing a lot of online programming for where I work. I wear my daytime hats as a librarian, so. Port Washington Public Library, we've got a whole bunch of digital things. I do a roundtable talk every week. We just did the Beatles Go Solo. I did that a couple of weeks in a row. And I'm doing One Hit Wonders this week. And every week there's a different topic. And we do a lot of live music there too, virtual live music on Friday nights. So there's always something cooking. Yeah.
Very cool. Awesome. Well, again, thank you very much. You know, everybody check out, if you haven't already, if you don't know it, it's Fab Four Free for All. Check it out. He's on YouTube, and you guys got the website, right? Fab Four Free for All as well. And you guys are on Spotify now as well, right?
Spotify also, yeah.
Spotify too. Awesome.
Yeah, which is nice.
Yeah.
Very good.
Cool. And you did that, right?
Yeah, and actually, no, that was Mitch. God love him. Mitch got that going on. He's like officially our executive producer. We call him. But he'll run with it. He'll get a tech idea and can we do this? Can we just? Don't worry, you could do it. Work it out. You know, don't put me in until you need me to. I'm busy editing the next show. You know, so he went and got that going on. So it was pretty good. Yeah.
Cool.
So.
Excellent. Andy, anything else you want to add to before we call it a day?
Good night, Vienna.
Very good. Very good. Well, anyways, for us, you know, we're on Instagram, Facebook, Twitter at Two Legs Podcast. You can find us on our YouTube channel at Two Legs, a Paul McCartney podcast. Please check that out. Subscribe to that if you'd like. Podbean, iTunes, iHeartRadio, we're there as well. Email us at twolegspodcast@gmail.com. We really appreciate all the emails, all the comments from our YouTube shows. Keep them coming, guys. We love them. We always look at them. We always we try to reply or at least give you guys the thumbs up for reply or for making a comment.
Guys. Thank you, especially on the YouTube stuff. The YouTube stuff is really picked up. So thank you for the YouTube support and the subscriptions. Thank you.
Right. Absolutely. Don't forget, and then my other show, Talk More Talk, as well. We're on Podbean, iTunes, iHeartRadio, Spotify, YouTube as well. So check that out.
A lot about Ringo on there too.
A lot about Ringo. Well, you know, we did the John final last night, but like I told you before, I mean, there's 10 years of John, you know, and only 6 albums or so. And,
so maybe next week's Talk More Talk can be like a 2-hour conversation on sometime in New York City. Good, I'll be.
Why not? Why not?
We did that. It's scary. It was scary.
I know. I remember. Oh.
Anyways, great fun tonight. Thank you, everybody. And
Thank you,
as
guys.
always, everybody have a great day and a beautiful night. Take care.
Peace.
Listening to Two Legs, a Paul McCartney podcast, hosted by Tom Hunyadi and Andy Nichols, with musical contributions by Dylan